Thanks, Pat. And I think actually it fits very well into how I see data governance and also what I did over the last 15, 20 years as an academic, starting from research around data quality with data management processes, roles, responsibility, checking the accuracy of the data, and then providing value for end users. So at that time I worked in the financial sector around this, but it's very similar, and that's also, so when Ralph asked me to present here, I was wondering why. So there are probably 2 or 3 reasons. One is I'm leading a large-scale data governance project, so funded with SFI and some of the centers, DAPT, Liro, Insight and Future Neuro. So that's a large-scale data governance project where we look at best practices and trying to shape these type of processes, data management ways, and a little bit wider, so how accepted it is around this in various sectors. And one is construction around this. So that's maybe one reason why I'm here. Also, and I remember a couple of years ago when I met Ralph the first time around building information management, together with my colleague Sore Pursolfaga, who works with me in the Innovation Value Institute. He described the area of building information management or information management for building, and I said, to me this sounds like an information management problem. So it's actually a lot of data sharing, and if we could share and if the data quality is accurate, we could actually increase the value. And that's how we started to work together, looking at standards, looking at how we can make that interoperability a bit better, how we can manage the data better, and how we can provide value on it. And that's, I think, these kind of key terms, what I'm always interested, so to provide value to the organizations, but on the end, to make the data management easier and maybe a little bit wider on data governance. And that's how that title also came up for this presentation. So somewhere we need to maybe look at data governance a little bit different to provide really value in BIM, building information management, and particularly use management on BIM on the end, not only the modeling is one part of it, but I think we really need to improve the management of information in a better way to deliver that potential, that value what the information has. And I think we all agree, and when I listened to other speakers this morning, I think there is so much potential what we can do to make that more efficient, to make the decision better, and to apply that information what we have in other areas. And so that fits very well into my area of expertise. So I'm an academic, I'm in Maynooth University. I'm the director of the Innovation Value Institute, and where we apply and where we work with companies together. And from the core discipline, data management is kind of the foundation, modeling, enterprise architecture, data flows, and a little bit of addition around understanding processes, understanding data flows. So it's really that mix between the technical capabilities and the management, so what we would call information management. So I think that fits very well, that interests me, that's what I want to work on. In the Innovation Value Institute, we have a set of companies we're working in. Some are from the construction, some are more from the information side, some in other sectors. And we have a number of sectors, and one is the construction industry, where Sore leads the digital construction cluster. And I probably also should mention we have also a stand out there. So if you're interested how that works with our cluster and in IVI, maybe you call also to the stand there. So that's the background, that's where I'm from, and that's what I'm interested in. And when we looked at BIM as in information management, we realized somewhere we need that component of realizing value. Realizing value actually from the digitalization, from sharing information. So we need to increase the understanding of it. What is possible? So what are actually data values? How can we quantify that? So if you actually put a business case together on the digitalization, that kind of value aspect is extremely important. So it's not just on actually digitalizing something. It's digitalizing the right thing and knowing what the benefits of that is in value terms. Also, I think, and Pat, you mentioned that, and many other speakers, standards are important, consistent requirements, asset information. So even that transparency and consistency, coherence of the meaning of the data is extremely important. And I think, and we are in the university, skill shortage around data governance, digitalization, information management, and adoption of digital is extremely important. I think we are far too short also in Ireland, but not only in Ireland, I think on courses which are suitable, for example, also for professionals to upskill on that digital governance skills. And there's a lot of work around this, even just to define what it is. So it's not just a technical component that mix around this. So that's a big thing from our side as well. Courses, suitable courses, maybe short courses, which are really suitable for professionals as well. And SORE works a lot in this kind of integration, so I think also that fragmentation is a big part on the different providers, but also supply chain, and when we work in the public sector, in the procurement policies, standards, ways to actually use these practices is important. So value is important. But if we bring everyone together and benefit from expertise, and that's why I like that conference here, we see so many different aspects of BIM, and if we bring the expertise together, if we discuss that, I thoroughly believe we can establish practices, maybe best practices for governing in building information, modeling information management. And all of this, what we do, should be open, accessible, shareable within the community. So that's what we do in IVI, and then hopefully that helps to increase the adoption of digital, accelerates it, and also publishes, promotes these data governance best practices in that sense of maybe expanding data management into really a governance regime, a governance system. So, as I mentioned, SORE works as she's the digital construction cluster lead, and she knows far more about BIM than I ever will do. And she came up and she leads the cluster with companies together, where they look at the integration, also the life cycle over information, so from the design phase to the construction to the operation phase. And of course, this is a really nice information management challenge to make that interoperable, to make that information sharing. There are technical challenges. For me, it's also the management challenges. So how do we manage this, that actually from these phases, broad phases, I agree, but how do we share that information? How can we mention that? That's where SORE works on it. Don't know if you want to add something to this, SORE.
Hello everyone, my name is Zore, and I've been working on this area since a few years ago. And we start this area working on that with ArcDocs. And I've been working on different standards. As you could see the diagram over here, it shows that we have been looking at information management across different stages of building projects, and looking at the fact that there are interoperability issues because of different reasons. For example, the data and information are created in different environments, and the exchange of information between these environments are problematic. At the moment, we are working with different companies, and also with ArcDocs, we have been recently working on that area. Maybe a journey toward developing a new standard for information exchange, because this is a problem at the moment, and there are interoperability issues between different CDEs. This is the area that we are working. I'm just shortening my talk, just saying that we are going to invite all of you to join us under this cluster to talk about the challenges for your specific company, and we are going to help you to apply for proposals from Enterprise Ireland, and we are going to hire some researchers working specifically on your challenges. Just hand it over to Markus to continue with the data governance topic. Thank you.
Thanks, Sore. And that's how it works. So I put a little bit of my data management expertise in it. Sore more from the building information modeling and side, but also with these partners. Everyone has their particular expertise, and we bring that all together, and then we establish, discuss, make it explicit what are good practices for data governance in this case, in digital construction. So how to share this, what technologies are available, how to automate certain parts, how to check the format. So there is really a lot there, but of course there could be also, we're working, for example, with computer science together, can be new developments around this. And I think this is this group, so this cluster on the end brings it all the different perspectives together, because I think the challenge is too big that one university, one organization would address all of this. So we need to discuss, and this is kind of the start of the cluster. And as Sora said, you are more than invited to join. But all of this links to this, what I would call rethinking data management. So data management is there for a long time. I think since I'm somewhere in academia, we're talking about data flows, we're talking about management, and there are plenty of frameworks. I just picked one prominent one, the DAMA framework, which is quite comprehensive. Like they're talking about metadata, storage, security, all the various aspects, so they have a body of knowledge of this. And then, of course, we can think about why do we need something else? Why can't we just use this? And I think the world has changed. The world has moved on in certain parts, and it became more dynamic. More diverse, more various types. Pat, you mentioned some of the types what we're dealing with. The amount of data has increased, and also I think the expectation what we can do with data. So when we worked with smart cities, and we said, oh yeah, we could do something with BIM standards, the list of expectations was almost endless, like what we could do with nice simulation, with energy consumption. So I think we need to rethink this kind of way of a very static way of looking at data management. We need to come to somewhere where we become a little bit more flexible, where we become more agile around this, where we can adjust this data management frameworks in that more agile way. And that's kind of where I would say this is where we rethink it. So it's complex, complexity has certainly increased, speed has increased, but we need the flexibility to cater with this. And so in that agile world, or that's kind of where it is in this, and that's where we need to have doable data management practices. At the same time, we need to think about all what we do. We need to deliver a lot of value. We need to think about efficient effectiveness, that we do the right thing. And that's where we're working on to balance all of this. So on the one side, we need somewhere structure. We need these frameworks. We need a little bit of guidance, systematic. But on the other side, we need a bit flexibility, reducing risk. So there's always a bit of it. And this kind of mixing together to a data governance framework. Where we look at is what we call data governance architecture, where we look at, we have models, we have descriptions of systems, we have descriptions of that information flow between it, we have a technique to check compliance of certain aspects on it, so we can automate certain things, but it's more than that. It's also a description where people in the smart city, for example, can look at, oh yeah, we want actually that information from the buildings for the mobility domain. So where they can identify opportunities around this. So we can describe at least parts of the information management system. So, and that's where basically why I'm talking about building information management, because I expand a little bit that building modeling to actually really management, information sharing, modeling of the information sharing. And that's what I call data governance architecture, and we can describe that. It fits very well into the big movement at the moment in the EU on Data Governance Act, where they want to share data a bit wider. So I think we are spot on with this on also data economy, so sharing data. For example, all the building information is quite valuable. So if we could share that, we could create that. We fit also very well into big trends. Automation is one, data fabric, so reducing manual labors. I think manual checkings is extremely important. Compliance, responsible ethics is important around this. So all of this, which started with GDPR, I think we are far further than this, and also the flexibility of the systems, architecture, connections between that. So, and I know, sounds like complex, a lot of things, but that's basically also what we see with big movement around data governance. That's what our issues are. Where we are working on is a data governance maturity model framework. So what does good look like? What are the parameters of good data governance? What are the skills? What technology should be there? What are the building blocks of data governance? And then hopefully kind of increasing the maturity, the best practices of data governance around this. And it has multiple viewpoints, business aspects, strategy, but also technology within that. So that's ongoing work. So we saw it together in the cluster. That's where we look at. We also work on some automation, where we look at, we have a compliance check approach. So compliance in the sense of what data should be shared, what can't be shared. So a rule-based one. And also where we started to work on is looking at, so what information is actually at the moment exchanged? So what are the current data flows? So we actually kind of reverse engineer. We look at data, and we know data was shared from A to B to C, and looking at that data flow around this, because that's quite a good input then on looking at compliance. And the title today in this session is around compliance. So I think this kind of looking at what data will be shared, is shared, and then looking at compliance is a really big part around this. So, and that fits all well into, we're looking at standards. Standards should be open. Pat, and I know in ArcDocs, you're working on the standards and the mapping around this. We need machinable, readable standards, ways, automation around it, and that needs to be cost-effective, efficient around this. And the last point is the education, training, as I mentioned on the beginning, is still, I think there's a need to find the right mix on this, upskilling, the mix of digital technology, maybe with in the construction sector, and the various interdisciplinary ways on looking at data governance and helping people, professionals, to really find the right skill mix around this. And that fits all into that big program, what I'm leading with colleagues of mine around data governance, where we see data governance in a little bit broader way than technology. We look at data markets, data value, sharing of data. We're looking at privacy preserving, compliance, standards. We're looking at automation and augmented data management. And we have the people in mind, because in smart cities, if we share data and people don't agree on certain information to share, we need to think about that, the ethical aspects around this, and what is acceptable from a privacy point as well. And I'm probably already on time, kind of somewhere around this. So I just want to summarize on that overview what I tried to give. As I said on the beginning, Sora knows much more about BIM than I do, but I think that perspective on data governance with tools, techniques, approaches, in particular the maturity model, what we are working on, is valuable. And we need to get to these practices that it's maybe expanding on the organizational list, on data flows, that we know what the right thing is, how such systems can be set up, how we can actually even measure how good we are on data governance, to realize really these opportunities and realizing the value proposition, what I think many of us see with building information. If it's shared in the right way, in the right quality, at the right time, then we can really realize this. And then it pays by itself. Like, to me, this is kind of, could say, almost a no-brainer to do good data governance, good data quality management, and on the end we realize far more value for the society, for the industry, for the organizations, with that valuable information what we have about buildings. So, and I think I leave it to that for the moment. I know we have a little bit of a panel discussion on the end. If you have questions, more than happy to answer.